Exclusive from Bellows Records.
Ambassador of Tonga Macho artists. Ahead. Mr. Fru Rogers, National Buddha President. Chilo Mapi, Jambo, Mitango, Vera. Okay, up Jaman. Dian and Boyo and Ngombo. Okay, up Jaman. Come to you one day. Nairobi, get the other people. My mentor. But you will not Jaman. Abisa Bukwa, Mr. Fokolo. Ega ya sema Bukwa, Buddha President. Alanga Jaman.
The number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now is the draft. We stand at the threshold of an existential struggle, a pivotal juncture in our proud history that brooks no failure, tolerates no hesitation. So we will draft incessantly, individually, within the warm, vibrant tapestries of our communities. We will draft. We must draft. Draft, for in this paramount task, our draft lies the power to liberate Ambazonia.
Good evening, fellow Ambazonians, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to this very important broadcast. Tonight we're drafting Boyo and Dian, the bread basket of Ambazonia. It's a remarkable opportunity that only 10 days away from Ambazonia's independence commemoration, we will be drafting the bread basket of Ambazonia. It's worth noting that one of Cameroon's candidates gunning for a 2D Unity Palace, Joshua Osing, has some roots emanating from Dian. It is also worth noting that the senior house slave, Dion Gute, Prime Minister of La République du Cameroon is also from Dian. Shockingly, Dian, as a breadbasket of Ambazonia, goes without any accessible road. Infrastructure in a place where Cameroon benefits, the county that feeds Cameroon's economy in a very huge way, unfortunately, does not have an accessible road. And Prime Minister John Guti is gallivanting in Yaoundé and in Bamenda with the intention of manipulating the people of Ambazonia that might be vulnerable at the home front right now. I want the lawyers to quickly, less than 3 minutes, tell us the significance of tonight's draft as we look forward to October 1st before we get into the newsroom to pick up some reports. Stay tuned. Barrister Fru, Barrister Mbeseha, you're both welcome. Thank you. We've had a tremendous week, and we'll definitely be talking about bringing some highlights of some of the things that the president said on Wednesday, re-energizing the struggle in a very particular way, igniting faith into the hearts of those who were cowarding or getting afraid because of the rampant arrests without understanding the legalities and intricacies. And tonight we have the bread basket, that one of the counties that's supposed to be drafted, only 10 days away from our Independence Day. How important is of tonight for the people of Ambazonia? Please, I begin with you, Barrister Fu.
Yes, Paddy, thank you very much. Thank you for another Saturday. Listen, we are at war. The war that was declared on the 30th of November by Mr. Biya, 2017 by Mr. Biya, is what we're fighting. We're still fighting. And today is so important because it involves the major bread basket. I would say the motivation for the war that Mr. Biya brought on us was triggered because of what they are getting from the Dian division. They don't want to lose Dian, and that is why they brought that war in order to keep us away so that they can eat and they can exploit the petroleum, all the natural resources that Dian possesses. Dian is a bread basket for Ambazonia, and so we have a moral obligation to fight to retain that part of our country, which is so important, which is probably the motivation for Mr. Biya fighting us, is the motivation for La République du Cameroun since they took over. They came and invaded our territory and assimilated us instead of having us as partners. Is the reason why they subdued us. They've taken everything from us because we have. In fact, today the Indian division is sustaining La République du Cameroun. La République du Cameroun is stealing our crude oil, is stealing our resources from Dian in order to stay alive. They are now operating at a very, very, very low level of financial availability. And Dian, where the crude oil is coming, is what they are living on. So Dian today, Dian tonight, I'm not saying this to play down Boyo's importance. Boyo is equally important, but we must understand that Dian is the bread basket of southern Cameroon. It has always been. If we have never benefited from what is coming from there, we have a duty to defend it. And every Ambazonian who believes in this revolution must come on board and make his contribution to Dian and Boyo tonight. That is the importance I place on this draft tonight.
Amazing. Vice Mbeseha, please.
Yeah, again, thanks once more for having us on another weekend. Now today and Boyo, what do they mean to us? Boy must draft, but there's a reason why you must draft. In addition to what Barrister said, rather, I was want to add something. You mentioned the Prime Minister, Dian and also all from Dian. They are active politicians. It will be good for us to remind ourselves that both Gute and Joshua Osi don't owe their political rights to Dian. Osi owes his position in parliament. Some people in Douala. He knows it. So too, Mr. Dian owes his to some appointment from Mr. Popia, who benefits everything from Dian, but gives nothing back. So what are these two fellows? They are pure political impostures. They are nothing, they are nothing. Again from Dian, as the President says, that's a place that produces everything and has nothing to show. That is a place where international agreements are violated with impunity. We remember the so-called Green Tree Act, essentially Bakassi, which is in India. What was the content of the Green Tree Act? That the Cameroon government will develop Bakassi, will build schools and hospitals to develop it because Nigeria had developed it. It's an international agreement signed by Cameroon, by the United Nations, and witnessed by the UK, the United States. Once they done that, they have simply ignored it. That's why today you find the US being swept away there. Pirates carrying everybody away from that place without any question asked. India, is that a place we can let go? No. Let us transition to Boyo. We are fighting a restoration war. That we're trying to restore. Let's forget. The last prime minister we had was kicked out for the first time in the history of federation illegally was Augustin Jua. He was the prime minister when Frontier moved to Yaoundé as the vice president. He was the prime minister that Mr. Hijo came to Boyo in 1968 and disgraced him on the floor of parliament and imposed Mr. Estimona as his prime minister, appointing a prime minister over a federated state. And so, and again, we might not know much about, we might not have read much about Augustin Gomjua. Augustin Gomjua was a politician at the grassroots. How did he rise to that level of becoming a prime minister? His first show up in the assembly in 1954 was as a representative of the NA, the Native Authority. That's from the grassroots. That's how he got there. And so when we were restoring Southern Cameroon institutions, in quote, we were restoring the government of Joa. That's the last prime minister we had. Did he elect him prime minister? But we didn't with a parliamentary democracy. The KNDP had a majority in parliament. And so when Frontier left, it was the duty of the KNDP to appoint a second prime minister from their ranks because they had the majority in the assembly. They had 14 out of 26 MPs in the Boyo assembly. And so we must draft for Dian, we must draft for Boyo, far apart in distance, but very close to the restoration issue. Thank you, and over to you.
Amazing. We are going to get into the newsroom now. Okay, Mr. Fru, you want to say something, please? 30 seconds.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that La Republique de Cameroon has no interest in developing Dian because they know that they will never defeat us. But they are dog thieves. A thief will not pick the road to go and steal. They just come and steal and run away.
Yeah.
They steal the recruit and run away. They have no interest in building schools. They will never build schools in Dian. That I can assure everybody. La Republique du Cameroon is a thief. They are stealing the crude, and we have no means of catching them. At least for now.
That's an unfortunate one. So we'll get into the news now to find out what's happening around the world. Some things are happening at the home front. When we come back, we'll get into some of the things the president discussed. It's important for us to tell the world and Ambazonians that this county in Dian is the First Lady's county. And for that, because of the honor of that, the president will be representing the president himself, the head of state, Commander-in-Chief of the Ambazonian State Army, tonight will be representing First Lady, his wife from Dian. So exceptionally, I'm telling all those who are watching us to get ready because the draft of today is quite remarkable because the president has promised to participate and he will be addressing the nation again this evening. Let's get into the news. We'll be right back.
The Trump administration's plan to impose a $100,000 annual fee on H-1B visas marks one of the most consequential shifts in U.S. immigration policies in decades. Beyond its immediate impact on foreign workers and the tech giants that rely on them, think about this. Will the U.S. preserve its reputation as a magnet for global talent, or will the policy drive innovation and high-value jobs overseas, weakening America's competitive edge in the race for artificial intelligence and advanced technologies? What could this decision mean in the global landscape? Meanwhile, over the weekend, the debate on the future of Ambazonia resurfaced as Dr. Samuel Ikome Sako, president of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, featured in an exclusive interview hosted by Anthropology King. The program themed Historicity, Legality, and the Ambazonian Liberation, a terrorist movement, examined the contested status of the Ambazonian struggle, the legality of lockdowns in the region, and the movement's strategies ahead of colonial French Cameroon's October elections. The conversation spotlighted unresolved questions of legitimacy, international recognition, and the fine line between liberation struggles and terrorism. As we delve into the details, this and many more will be explored into this flash news. Good evening and welcome. I am Tabitha Akor. Let's begin. The Trump administration announced Friday that companies will be required to pay $100,000 annually for each H-1B visa, a move that could reshape the landscape of skilled immigration and deal a major blow to the U.S. technology sector. Most probably. The H-1B program, which allows U.S. employers to hire foreign workers in specialized fields, has long been dominated by tech giants such as Microsoft, Amazon, and JP Morgan. More than 70% of visa beneficiaries are from India, followed by China. With the new fee structure taking effect this weekend, major companies have advised employees on H-1B visas to remain in the United States or return before the deadline. U.S. Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, alongside President Trump, had this to say. Take a look.
We need workers. We need great workers. And this pretty much ensures that that's what's going to happen. I think, Sean, do you agree with that?
Well, they're $100,000 per year. So the whole idea is no more will these big tech companies or other big companies train foreign workers. They have to pay the government $100,000, then they have to pay the employee. So it's just not economic. If you're going to train somebody, you're going to train one of the recent graduates from one of the great universities across our land train Americans, stop bringing in people to take our jobs. That's the policy here.
But the main thing is we're going to have great people coming in, and they're going to be paying. I mean, it's wonderful to say, oh, gee, we took in 25 million people. Many criminals, jails were open from Venezuela, from many other countries, and they were let out of jail and poured into our country, our poor country, how it suffered with this.
The policy is the latest in a series of immigration restrictions rolled out since President Trump took office. But it represents his most high-profile attempt to overhaul temporary employment visas. The administration argues that firms should prioritize hiring American graduates, while critics counter that the change undermines access to global talent. The impact on business could be severe. Large corporations may be able to absorb the additional cost, but smaller tech firms and startups already struggling to compete with industry giants face significant financial strain. Could this accelerate the outsourcing of high-value work to countries like India and China, further eroding the U.S. position in artificial intelligence and other cutting-edge fields? The proposed fee also raises questions of legality. Immigration policy experts note that Congress has only authorized the government to recover processing costs, not impose sweeping financial barriers. So if challenged in court, will the measures survive judicial review? What are market reactions? Market reactions recently were swift. Shares of Cognizant's technology solutions fell nearly 5%, while U.S.-listed stocks of Indian IT firms, Infosys and Wipro, dropped between 2% and 5%. The policy also risks diplomatic fallout given India's heavy reliance on the visa program. How will Washington balance domestic political goals with the need to maintain economic and strategic partnerships abroad? Supporters of the crackdown argue that the H-1B program has been exploited to suppress wages and sideline American workers. But others insist that restricting access to foreign talent could stifle innovation and growth in key industries. Is the U.S. trading the long-term competitiveness for short-term protectionism? The new rule comes alongside another executive order introducing a gold card residency option, allowing permanent status for those who can pay $1 million upfront, a stark contrast that underscores the administration's shifting approach to immigration. It restricts skilled visas while opening pathways for the wealthy. The debate over the H-1B program underscores a broader question. Can the U.S. remain the global hub for innovation while imposing financial barriers that deter the very talent that help build its technology dominance? Now, away from the U.S., a critical question. Now, let's head over to Israel in Gaza. Israel's demolition of high-rise buildings in Gaza City has left hundreds homeless and raised concerns that Palestinians may be permanently forced out, according to residents and the UN Human Rights Office. The intensified campaign began on September 5th when an airstrike brought down the 15-story Mushtaha Tower. Residents said the destruction of tower blocks along with demolition across the Yutan, Tofa, Shijai, and Sheikh Al-Radwan signals an effort to clear densely populated neighborhoods ahead of Israel's ground assault. Let's take a look. Israel's military says it has targeted around 20 high-rise blocks in Gaza City in recent weeks, describing them as Hamas infrastructure. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has claimed 50 terrorist towers were destroyed. The military insists it has no strategy to flatten Gaza, arguing that tall buildings are used for surveillance and attacks, although Hamas denies the allegation. The UN Human Rights Office warned that deliberate efforts to relocate residents could amount to ethnic cleansing. Israel's actions come as UN experts and rights groups caution that widespread destruction of civilian housing and infrastructure may constitute war crimes. The war, now nearing its second year, has killed more than 65,000 Palestinians, displaced most of the population, and pushed much of Gaza into famine, according to UN figures. An inquiry last week concluded that Israel had committed genocide in Gaza, a finding Israel rejected as biased. Marco Rubio, the National Secretary, has this to say. Let's take a look.
I prefer that this end with a negotiated settlement that leads to the release of every single hostage, alive and deceased, that leads to the demilitarization and disarming of Hamas, so they can no longer pose a threat, not just to Israel, but everyone.
Marco Rubio calling for the immediate release of hostages. Residents described panic and despair as evacuations were ordered with little warning before demolitions. Meanwhile, the Israeli military later claimed Hamas maintained underground infrastructure beneath the site, but did not provide evidence. Let's take a look. Beyond the city center, controlled demolitions are being reported daily. The conflict monitoring group, ACLED, documented more than 170 demolitions in Gaza City since early August, a higher pace than in the first 15 months of the war. The United Nations data shows nearly 80% of Gaza's buildings, about 247,000 structures, have been damaged or destroyed since the conflict began. However, the war for a two-state recognition of Palestinians has been a surge of disagreement between global leaders. Let's take a look.
I want the hostages released now, right now, not 1, 2, we'll give you 3 more tomorrow. And, like it's been, but we're the ones that got all the hostages released. We got many came to the Oval Office, and I've heard stories like I've never thought even possible.
Aid organizations warn that demolitions of the remaining towers, which often shelter displaced families, will worsen overcrowding in the south. Analysts say the widening destruction raises questions about whether military objectives and political goals are diverging, with some Israeli officials openly discussing clearing Palestinians for future redevelopment. As the offensive continues, residents forced from their homes face uncertainty over whether they will ever and maybe return. Now, that's all for Israel and Hamas. Moving over to Africa. In South Africa, a hospital cleaner in South Africa's Mpumalanga province has been arrested after police found her carrying a bag filled with human placentas. The 39-year-old woman, identified as Rose Mnisi, was detained during a routine patrol in Lydenburg, also known as Mashinhing. Police said she was hitchhiking to Nashville when security officers acting on a tip-off stopped her and discovered the human tissues in her possession. Investigators believe she may have been seeking potential buyers, but the authorities have not disclosed what the placentas were intended for. The seized body parts have been sent for forensic analysis. Mnisi, who works in the maternity ward of a local hospital, appeared in court on Thursday and was charged with illegal possession of human tissue. She has not yet entered a plea and is expected to return to court next month for a bail hearing. Police said further charges could follow as investigations continue. The case has revived concerns over the illicit trade in human body parts in South Africa, where some killings and mutilations have been linked to traditional ritual practices. Earlier this month, a Mozambican traditional healer was arrested in Tishwane with human remains linked to the 2023 murder of a young woman. The incident raises questions about how hospital waste and sensitive medical materials are handled and whether stronger monitoring systems are needed to prevent misuse. Now, that's all for today's global news. We'll be heading over to the editorial. Thanks for staying with us.
Boyo County, lying in the green highlands of the Midlands, is a land defined by its mountains, fertile valleys, and unique cultural identity, with Fundong as its capital and three major local government areas, Bello, Njinikom, and Boom, alongside 8 vibrant satellite villages. Boyo is more than just an administrative unit. It is a community knitted together by history, a county knitted together by culture, one knitted by resilience. The language Itainikon, spoken in Boyo, is distinct in the Midlands, marking the county as a cradle of cultural uniqueness. Its matrilineal tradition, where inheritance and enthronement flow through the mother's line, sets Boyo apart from every other county in southern Cameroon, enriching its social fabric. Geographically, Boyo's mountains and fertile soils sustain agriculture, while its forests and flowering plants support one of the most thriving beekeeping traditions in Ambazonia. The moderate climate makes it not only agriculturally productive but also ecologically sustainable, blending nature with livelihood. Boyo is in every sense a hidden gem of the Midlands, rich in history, biodiversity, and culture, but also deeply significant to the larger narrative of Ambazonia's fight for liberation. Anthropological history and culture of cultural evolution. We see Boyo's anthropological history is a story of resilience through time, home to the Kom, Boom, and Nsoh peoples. The county's pre-colonial society was structured around chiefdoms, with the Fon serving as the center of governance, dispute resolution, and spiritual mediation. Colonial intrusion disrupted this harmony. Under German rule, Boyo experienced forced labor, resource exploitation, and cultural suppression. When the British came, schools came with it, churches, and Western governance, but also the seeds of alienation as traditional structures gave way to external influences. Yet Boyo did not fold. Instead, its people adapted, resisting where necessary, and preserving their indigenous languages, beliefs, and governance styles. Post-1961, when Southern Cameroon was annexed into La République du Cameroon, Boyo entered a new era of marginalization. Still, its cultural pride persisted, with organizations like the Boyo Cultural and Development Association, BUCDA, championing festivals, local crafts, and community development. This cultural resilience remains Boyo's shield and weapon in the struggle for liberation, reminding Ambazonians that preserving identity is itself an act of resistance. Now, Boyo is more than a cultural hub. It is an economic powerhouse within Ambazonia. Its highlands, standing between 1,200 and 2,000 meters above sea level, produce some of the finest Arabica coffee in West Africa, shade-grown, organic, and nurtured through sustainable practices. Boyo's coffee is a global treasure, yet its farmers remain trapped in cycles of exploitation, which even lead to benefit from their world-class crop. Now, beyond coffee, Boyo's fertile soils sustain food crops, livestock, and an expanding honey industry powered by the county's flowering grasslands and dense forests. Now, this makes Boyo not only a contributor to Ambazonia's food security, but also a symbol of how agriculture can empower people economically. Tourism adds another layer to Boyo's potential, with wonders like the Lake Oku, Mbi Crater Lake, and the Nkofem waterfalls. Boyo offers landscapes that rival the best ecotourism sites in Africa, where species like the gray-necked rockfowl attract global ornithologists, while eco-lodges offer immersive cultural experiences. Yet again, the paradox is clear. Boyo is rich, but its people are kept poor. Liberation means reclaiming control over these resources, ensuring the agriculture and tourism serve the people first and not external exploiters. Now, perhaps the most defining feature of Boyo's contribution to the struggle is the towering legacy of Augustine Ngomjua from 1921 to 1999. Born in Boyo, Ngomjua became one of the most fearless political leaders of southern Cameroon. His life was marked by unyielding resistance against injustice and betrayal. As Premier of West Cameroon in the 1960s, he championed autonomy, self-governance, and economic empowerment, values deeply rooted in Boyo's traditions. His establishment of the Boyo Farmers Cooperative Union was revolutionary, proving that economic independence is the cornerstone of political freedom. Ngomjua understood unity. He worked tirelessly to bridge divisions, empower farmers, and strengthen local communities, teaching that liberation is not only a political struggle, but also an economic and cultural one. His legacy today is both a warning and a guide. Without unity, Boyo cannot be free. Without economic empowerment, political freedom could be an illusion. For Amazonians, Augustine Ngomjua's example shines as a reminder that liberation is within reach when courage meets collective purpose. Boyo County is not just another county in southern Cameroon. It is a heartbeat of the liberation struggle. Its history, culture, agriculture, tourism potential, and above all, the legacy of Augustine Ngomjua makes it indispensable to Ambazonia's fight for dignity and self-determination. Now, from its matrilineal traditions to its highland coffee, from its waterfalls to its legacy of resistance, Boyo embodies resilience. In the face of oppression, it stands as a beacon, showing that freedom is not only possible, but inevitable when a people hold fast to their identity, unity, and destiny.
The number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now is the draft. We stand at the threshold of an existential struggle, a pivotal juncture in our proud history that brooks no failure, tolerates no hesitation. So we will draft incessantly, individually, within the warm, vibrant tapestries of our communities. We will draft. We must draft. Draft, for in this paramount task, our draft lies the power to liberate Ambazonia.
The World Draft once more is coming to your county. Stand up. No greater victory was ever achieved than by greater sacrifices.
If I promise and fail, let our fallen heroes and heroines guide and shield our men and women. Let their ultimate sacrifice be the reason we change the game and give our enemies what they have been giving us. Ambazonia needs to protect its people from the terrorist troops of La République du Cameroon. The time is now.
We are enough. So let's draft, and draft Our existence as a people depends on that.
It's time for Boyo. It's time for Dian County.
All right, and let's go straight to news making rounds from the home front. First of all, in your speech delivered on Thursday, September 18th, President Samuel Sako of the Ambazonian government denounced the 1961 plebiscite that led to the union of Southern Cameroons with the Republic of Cameroons, arguing it failed to meet international standards for decolonization. He emphasized that the option of full independence was deliberately excluded, and Britain's withdrawal on the 1st of October 1961 marked not the end of colonization, but a transition into a new form of denomination under the Cameroonian state. President Sako criticized the process as a violation of the United Nations Charter and the right to self-determination, pointing out that Southern Cameroons, unlike other trust territories such as the Tanganyika and the Tongaland, already had a functioning democratic government and international autonomy. Yet, it was observed by another state without constitutional negotiation or a democratic mandate from its people. No federal constitution was ratified by Southern Cameroons, and the subsequent political arrangements were imposed without consent. President Sako warned against narratives that portray Cameroons as one and indivisible, saying they distort the historical and legal realities. He argued that the continued denial of Southern Cameroon's identity, institutions, and autonomy has led to marginalization, systemic oppression, and ongoing conflict. He also criticized both foreign powers and certain nationalist figures for failing to hold Britain accountable for mishandling the decolonization process. In a follow-up interview with journalist Paddy King, President Sako addressed the arrest of individuals involved in criminal activities within the Ambazonian movement. He distinguished between legitimate resistance under international law and acts of organized criminality, stressing that the movement, Ambazonian movement, does not condone attacks on civilian children or non-combatants. According to him, such actions only undermine the struggle and play into narratives designed to delegitimize it globally. President Sako concluded by reaffirming that the Ambazonian cause remains grounded in international law and backed by fundamental principles of self-determination. He called for a new UN supervised negotiation process between Southern Cameroons and the Republic of French Cameroon, warning that without genuine dialogue, the conflict will persist. He stated that decolonization remains complete and that the struggle continues not just for political reasons, but because justice demands it. Now, let's get it clear of that.
Fellow Ambazonians, before I came to this seat, I worked with President Ayub Tabe. We continued in the same spirit of a civil resistance that has the right to defend itself if facing imminent bodily harm. All of us who have been leaders and who are leaders will lead structures which have legal entities. None of these legal entities have been proscribed by the law of any country. If you know one, you can tell me, proscribed or labeled as a criminal organization. That is how laws are written. You don't break a law where there's no law anywhere in the world, except what the propagandists are saying in Yaoundé. It is mere propaganda for La Republique to take advantage of whatever happens. Where we live, there are laws. There are laws in the United States. These individuals, right or wrong, have been arrested, investigated, indicted, and based on the information they have, they believe that crimes have been committed. When we started this escalation, I called them comrades, but sometimes one has to live longer to know who is a comrade and was just a companion of convenience. These comrades are not just alleged to have committed crimes or violated the laws of the country that they are. Most of the reasons why they have been indicted are for things that they owned, they claimed, and they took responsibility for those actions. So it's a confessional crime. But when people commit individual acts of criminality, the only thing I pray is that they are innocent. It's a false accusation. Because I know some who are locked up who are innocent. For that one, I want the law to apply so that they are released. But when people commit crimes or acts of criminality are committed, and people come out and beat their chest in their life that they committed this act and that they are doing it as part of their warning to the people and so on, that is either stupidity or sabotage. The enemy will only promote the person who promotes their agenda. The person who promotes their strategy, that's the one they promote. Yeah. What's their strategy? Their strategy is to demarcate the struggle. Their strategy is to redefine the struggle, not as a political cause, but as an act of organized criminality, so that the war will turn against it. The truth will be buried and forgotten. They promote the person who is committing acts of criminality and who is taking ownership. So in your mind, you will say, okay, are these the people you are advocating for? Are these the people you want us to sit down and have a civil conversation with? These are all criminals. That is the narrative. And they will promote the face that will suit that narrative. In a state of war, every act of war is legitimate. What's the act of war? You make sure that you fight those who are fighting you. You don't attack the civilians. You don't attack the women and the children and the vulnerable and those who cannot defend themselves, unless a civilian puts himself in a position working for the enemy forces, and therefore he makes himself a target. Otherwise, an act of war is military to military. This government does not own people. Don't own those who fight in the bushes, trying to defend themselves, their properties, and their families. We are not a government that one day went to the streets and to the homes and recruited a bunch of people, went and trained them, and then armed them and said, go and fight. You are called soldiers. We are not that kind of government. Right now, we have people who have said enough is enough, like we have said it in the diaspora. Those people who just yield to pressure are people who are looking for something. We are not looking for something. The only thing we are looking for is what the people are looking for. The only time I will call a lockdown is when it makes sense. It makes sense because it makes sense to me. It makes sense to the government. It makes sense to the people that we are calling it for. It makes sense to the international community if I will offer my explanation. It makes sense anywhere that I am called up. The last defense line we have is the law, the court of law. And as long as we are acting within the law, because we are not ordering crimes, I have not ordered any criminal action. There's nobody in my government who is ordering crimes to be committed. That's not freedom. That's not a struggle. None can deny that we are at a turning point in our struggle right now. There is going to be a paradigm shift from this moment going forward. We're entering a new phase in our struggle where some things we were hoping for are becoming more and more inevitable. Yes, I mean the dialogue, the meaningful dialogue and negotiation that will be becoming more and more inevitable. And when you go to the international community, there's an air of compulsion right now that speaks to the things that need to be done, because they have moved from accepting that we are right to the point where they are saying, how long? How long before a process is engaged for a permanent resolution of this conflict? And right now, that is the era we are entering.
Oh, well, just in case you missed that interview, that is a clip that you can hold on to or go straight to ABC platforms across all the socials to get all of the full interview. But right now, let's get some more reports from the home front. Let's head to Sako and see what's happening in Sako. Now, the proactive inhabitants of Great Sako, Boyo, who recently chased away drug users from their neighborhood, have escalated their community response by apprehending several of the individuals. However, the community chose a non-violent approach, opting instead for a stern public warning. and the ongoing struggle to reclaim their community from the grip of drug-fueled crime. An effect of the ongoing war in Ambazonia, residents of Great Sako in Boyo detained several individuals locally known as junkies or drug addicts. Initially, anger within the community was palpable, with some suggesting a direct physical response. However, the residents decided to adopt a measure of restraint instead of administering a mob beating. The community leaders and inhabitants opted for a public confrontation and warning. The apprehended individuals were brought before the community and given clear instruction to restrict from selling or using drugs in Great Sako. The warning was delivered with a promise of severe consequences which would follow should they violate their community's decree and return to perpetrate drug-related activities in the area. Signaling its determination to solve the social problems arising from the ongoing war declared by French Cameroon over 8 years ago, the community has effectively declared Great Sako in the Atlantic Zone a drug-free zone under its own enforcement. We must also mention that the Great Sako is not the only people fighting drug abuse. Time and over again, for Bamenda and its environs, it has become a regular affair where even the French Cameroon police has been caught also taking drugs in Bamenda. Critics maintain that the sale of drugs in Ambazonia is in a bid to destroy the lives of ambitious youths to make them less productive in Ambazonia. Of course, you know that roads are highly dilapidated in Ambazonia. Let's go to Dikome Balwe. A picture square community in the Atlantic Zone of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia is crying out for help. As its major access route, the road linking 3 corners Ekombe and 3 corners Bekonde has become nearly impassable. The road's deplorable state has sparked frustration amongst residents who claim that the Cameroon's People's Democratic Movement has failed to address basic infrastructure needs despite being in power for 40 years, which we have said. The road in question is a vital link to the Dikome Balwe local government area in the Dian County, but its condition has made it impossible for even 4-wheel drive vehicles to navigate, especially during this rainy season. Residents are pointing fingers at the colonial government, accusing them of neglecting their Indians' infrastructure needs, which is true. The situation is particularly embarrassing for the Ambazonian community, given that the French Cameroon's Prime Minister, Dr. Joseph Dion Ngutte's village, is affected by the poor road condition. The community is questioning how a government that claims to prioritize development can neglect such a crucial aspect of infrastructure, if not for ill intention. The poor state of the roads has severe consequences for the local population. The deplorable road condition leads to increased transportation costs and difficulties in accessing markets, affecting the local economy. Residents face challenges in accessing essential services like healthcare and education due to poor road condition. The road's condition poses a significant risk to drivers and passengers as well, with increased chances of accidents and vehicle damage. As the colonial government continues to make promises during the upcoming election, residents of Dikome Balwe are demanding actions. They want the colonial government to prioritize road infrastructure and its development and address the long-standing issue of poor road conditions. Several other stories of neglect. Let's head to neighboring French Cameroons, where more than 30 displaced Ambazonian families are warehoused in substandard informal housing in the Mbeseha neighborhood of neighboring French Cameroon's capital city, Yaoundé. Internally displaced persons from both Ambazonia and La République du Cameroon's far north region live in deplorable conditions. Unfortunately, these citizens are forced to pay for the colonial government's failed security policies, which has only escalated the humanitarian crisis. The Mbeseha facility is a compound of human neglect. Over 30 IDP families reside in squalid conditions, forced into substandard residence by the over 8-year-long war they fled. These IDPs originate from the volatile Savannah, Midland Zone, Atlantic zones of Ambazonia, alongside those displaced from the far north region in neighboring French Cameroon. Guiding a reporter through the makeshift accommodation, Mrs. Genesis, an IDP from Jakiri, stated that there were so many IDPs there from both the southern Cameroons and La Republic to Cameroon's far north. She also remarked that most of the houses around the vicinities were occupied by IDPs who were living in marginable conditions. Water and sanitation are critical. Unaddressed issues within the facility. Living spaces are partitions with simple plywood, offering no privacy or dignity to families. For many of the Ambazonian IDPs, this squalor represents a complete reversal of fortune, as they were once owners of homes and operated businesses, fleeing to Yaoundé only when escalating war triggered and sustained by the colonial government's indifference made their homes inhabitable. They now confront the compounded misery of displacement and the severe economic hardship the colonial capitals present. Unfortunately, unlike the narrative being sold, the war is not contained, it is worsening, and the suffering of the people lies squarely with a government that refuses to address the root causes of the problem. These and more are the reasons why Ambazonians are gathered together tonight to draft to ensure that freedom is secured and all will be happy at the end of the day. So this is a gentle reminder for you to draft like never before. Before we head into the draft proper, let's take the editorial for Dian County.
This is the voice of Ambazonia. Truth in resistance, clarity in...
The number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now is the draft. We stand at the threshold of an existential struggle, a pivotal juncture in our proud history that brooks no failure, tolerates no hesitation. So we will draft incessantly, individually, within the warm, vibrant tapestries of our communities. We will draft. We must draft. Draft, for in this paramount task, our draft lies the power to liberate Ambazonia.
Amazing. Barrister Fru, Barrister Mbeseha, you're welcome back. It's been an amazing report we're having there. I want us to go straight away. You watch the excerpt of the president. I think it's about a 4 minutes excerpt, just so we're not lost with the reports that are coming from the ground. I'm going to play that excerpt again. Once I'm done, I'd like the both of you to just give an interchangeable analysis of it. When we're done with that analysis, we're going to bring the editorial from the NDIAN and take on some other things so we can transition into the Zoom meeting and get tonight started. So let's get to hear what the president said on Wednesday. I think we have a highlight here that is good for you. Okay, stay tuned.
Fellow Ambazonians, before I came to this seat, I worked with President Ayukabe. We have continued in the same spirit of a civil resistance that has the right to defend itself if facing imminent bodily harm. All of us who have been leaders and who are leaders will lead structures which have legal entities. None of these legal entities have been proscribed. by the law of any country, if you know one, you can tell me, proscribed or labeled as a criminal organization. That is how laws are written. You don't break a law where there's no law anywhere in the world, except what the propagandists are saying in Yaoundé. It is for mere propaganda for La Republique to take advantage of whatever happens. Where we live, there are laws. There are laws in the United States. These individuals, right or wrong, have been arrested, investigated, indicted, and based on the information they have, they believe that crimes have been committed. When we started this escalation, I called them comrades, but sometimes one has to live longer to know who is a comrade and who was just a companion of convenience. These comrades are not just alleged to have committed crimes or violated the laws of the countries that they are. Most of the reasons why they have been indicted are for things that they owned, they claimed, and they took responsibility for those actions. So it's a confessional crime. But when people commit individual acts of criminality, the only thing I pray is that they are innocent. It's a false accusation. Because I know some who are locked up who are innocent. For that one, I want the law to apply so that they are released. But when people commit crimes or acts of criminality are committed, and people come out and beat their chest in what they like, that they committed this act, and that they are doing it as part of their warning to the people and so on, that is either stupidity or sabotage. The enemy will only promote the person who promotes their agenda. The person who promotes their strategy, that's the one they promote. Yeah. What's their strategy? Their strategy is to demarcate the struggle. Their strategy is to redefine the struggle, not as a political cause, but as an act of organized criminality, so that the war will turn against it. The truth will be buried and forgotten. They promote the person who is committing acts of criminality and who is taking ownership, so that in your mind you will say, okay, are these the people you are advocating for? Are these the people you want us to sit down and have a civil conversation with? These are all criminals. That is the narrative. And they will promote the face that will suit that narrative. In a state of war, every act of war is legitimate. What's the act of war? You make sure that you fight those who are fighting you. You don't attack the civilians. You don't attack the women and the children and the vulnerable and those who cannot defend themselves, unless a civilian puts himself in a position working for the enemy forces, and therefore he makes himself a target. Otherwise, an act of war is military to military. This government does not own people. They don't own those who fight in the bushes, trying to defend themselves, their properties, and their families. We are not a government that one day went to the streets and to the homes and recruited a bunch of people, went and trained them, and then armed them and said, go and fight. You are called soldiers. We are not that kind of government. Right now, we have people who have said, enough is enough, like we have said it in the diaspora. Those people who just yield to pressure are people who are looking for something. We are not looking for something. The only thing we are looking for is what the people are looking for. The only time I will call a lockdown is when it makes sense. It makes sense because it makes sense to me. It makes sense to the government. It makes sense to the people that we are calling it for. It makes sense to the international community if I will offer my explanation. It makes sense anywhere that I am called up to. The last defense line we have is the law, the court of law. And as long as we are acting within the law, because we are not ordering crimes, I have not ordered any criminal action. There's nobody in my government who is ordering crimes to be committed. That's not freedom. That's not a struggle. None can deny that we are at a turning point in our struggle right now. There is going to be a paradigm shift from this moment going forward. We're entering a new phase in our struggle where some things we were hoping for are becoming more and more inevitable. Yes, I mean the dialogue, the meaningful dialogue and negotiation that will be becoming more and more inevitable. And when you go to the international community, there's an air of compulsion right now that speaks to the things that need to be done, because they have moved from accepting that we are right to the point where they are saying, how long? How long before a process is engaged for a permanent resolution of this conflict? And right now, That is the era we are entering.
That was indeed a clinical one there from the President of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. I think, Barrister Fru, I'll begin with you. This message from the President, that I would say that's a full summary of a 2 hours interview. So much was said, I believe you have all watched, but I like to know, it's this like a post-analysis, its significance, and what Ambazonians need to hold on to as we continue to fight. Please, Barrister Fru, I begin with you.
Yes, sir. Now let's look at what the president has said. And before even he said it, every well-informed Ambazonian knows that the Ambazonia has a government in exile. And that government is bound to respect the laws of the country that they live in. We are in exile. We are bound to respect the laws of the host country that is hosting this government in exile. Number two, when Ayabacho and the ADF and EGOC was established, they were looking how to make money from the struggle. And they got to associate themselves and even sign contracts with the enemy. All of Ayabacho's crimes, all of his partners in crime were committed on the people of the southern Cameroon and Ambazonia. Not one, not even one, but anybody from the enemy's camp was ever killed by the ADF. They turned their guns on the people they claimed they were part of. They executed several of our soldiers. I mean, the soldiers that this government has trained to fight for our liberation. They got them in Guzang and buried them alive. Number two, they executed 2 Ambazonians in the public square. Number 3, they hung the head of the prince of a village in Batibo on a tree. And all what I've said, buddy, they claim responsibility. Not only responsibility for their own acts, but when the enemy commit extrajudicial killing on our people, this same organization led by Ayabacho, EGOC and ADF, they claim responsibility. The time has come for them to face the music. Because you cannot eat your cake and have it. You claim responsibility for any act, means you own it and you must defend it. It's time for them to defend it in the court of law. You cannot sit in this land, America, and commit and order the commission of crimes anywhere in the world and own it and accept it and declare that you did it, and you think that the law will not come after you. These are people who, in real sense, that organization, the EGOC and ADF, should have been declared a terrorist organization long ago. Because they have no place in this revolution. They have never had any place in the struggle. They are a branch of the enemy, the proxies of the enemy. They were acting for and on behalf of the enemy. They were killing Ambazonians. They were not killing La Republic citizens. No La Republic citizen has fallen because of ADF. No. Their guns were on the people of the southern Cameroon and Ambazonia. And that is what, and they have claimed responsibility. Let them face the music. President Sako has given the world a succinct and very detailed explanation of what these people are and who they are, and makes a concise difference between the government in exile and these hoodlums who are acting on behalf of the army of the enemy as the perpetrators of all the crimes that they were committing on our people. Extrajudicial killings, which are prohibited by any law in the world. Secondly, our people, the self-defense people of this government, respect the Geneva Convention like any war. Mr. Paul Biya declared a war on our people, and we had no weapons. We had to defend ourselves by all means possible. And you must say, like the president said, he has made a clear distinction between fighting a war and criminality. You fight the war, you only fight the enemy. You don't fight the civilians, you don't fight children, you don't fight women, you don't fight innocent people who cannot defend themselves. You fight only the enemy. Unless a civilian has associated himself with that enemy and is working for that enemy, then he becomes a paramilitary personnel of that enemy, then he's part of the war. Until then, you must only fight those that are at war with you. Number two, anytime that you, on any side of the conflict, you capture anybody, the law, the international law, the Rome statutes have defined what is a war crime and what is not. You capture a soldier and you go and murder that soldier, you have committed a war crime. And our fighters on the ground never capture anybody and kill. No. If you do that, this government will hand you over to the judge for justice to take its course. Because the international the rules of the war must be respected by all the parties. La Republic of Cameroon has committed all kinds of war crimes on our people. When we file a complaint, we listed all of them. And this war crime does not only concern adult civilians. It concerns our babies and our school children. Would you imagine, Paddy, between Widikum and Manfe in that your village, I don't know why you call it, the Cameroon soldiers took a baby and fried that baby in a boiling oil. What has a toddler who was sitting with his parents and the parents escaped?
You are talking about Kendem.
Kendem,
yeah.
Yes.
Actually,
what has that toddler done?
That story is quite remarkable by Fru. What they did, actually, the gendarme left Manfe and they were driving towards Bamenda. And so these women heard that the gendarmes were coming and they flee into
and left the baby.
And left the baby there in a cage. And before they came back, the baby was frying. And so they got offended that the women escaped. And so they took the baby and fried the baby.
Yes.
That's how.
And that's not all. And that's not all. That's not all. In Muyuka, a baby was lying on a couch when the mother was in the kitchen. And a Cameroon soldier opened fire, 9 bullets, buried 9 bullets into that baby matter. That's another war crime. The killing of Ndale going to school in his mother's car is a war crime. The killing of baby Tato in Bamenda, walking back from school, is a war crime. the burning of our villages and our towns is a war crime. The killing of civilians who were not involved in the fighting is a war crime committed on our people by the Republic of Cameroon. The genocide they committed genocide.
Even as we speak right now, they are oppressing the people in Okona, intimidating people to conform. All of that is war crime. Was you use
all that is war crime?
Yeah.
That is a war crime as defined by the Rome Statutes. And we have filed a complaint, and the complaint is taking its course. Look, Paddy, the ADF and AGOP team must be ready to respond to its crimes. Not all of them have been picked up, but they will be picked up. Nowhere has started this whole thing. Nowhere is a country in the West, and anytime that they do criminal referrals, the other countries are respected. They will all be picked up. They will all answer to their crime, which they owned. They owned. So our president has done a marvelous job this week. That interview should go viral around the world so that they know exactly what we are going through.
By Mbeseha, before we move forward, I'd like to get your take. I've been looking forward to talk to you since Wednesday, please. Since Thursday.
Well, I think the president said a lot. And because of lack of time, let me just say a few things to clarify what he said. The Ambazonian struggle has been going on for almost 9 years today. Can anybody say that is terrorism? Certainly no. I can assure every Ambazonian who is doing the right thing that nobody will charge you for terrorist acts. Is it me saying it? No. Look at all the human rights reports on Cameroon from 2015 till today, where the Ambazonian struggle features. They're talking about the struggle of Ambazonia, and then they're talking about the struggle with Boko Haram, terrorist organization. They are clearly defined there. And so once you are doing the right thing, you don't need to be scared of anything called terrorism. But in the Ambazonian struggle, there are good and bad actors. Bad actors commit war crimes in the process. Bad actors violate all international law on war and human rights. Are they being prosecuted? Some are. Would they be prosecuted? They will. I can assure you that. They will. The doors of the ICC are open. Their process is, but it comes up all the time. It will come to pass. But looking forward to what the president said, and specifically to what is happening in the United States and other countries around the world. See, you don't take an indictment for a conviction. To the best of my knowledge, no Ambazonian has been convicted anywhere in the United States of acts of terrorism or any similar thing. It has not happened. Is there any evidence that it could have happened? Of course. Acts of terrorism can give rise to criminal charges, as well as they can give rise to civil reparations. In the last 5, 6, 7 years, acting in the name of Cameroon, Nsalah has sued a number of Ambazonians as on behalf of the victims of terrorism committed by Ambazonians. None of those cases have seen the day of light. They all failed before the American courts. And so, doubtless of criminal actions, nothing has succeeded to brand us terrorists, either by Nsalah or any other person. And so, Nsalah might do all that. Don't care yourself about what the Nsalah says or what CRTV says. People report stories the way they want them to be reported. A story headline is not, there's a lot behind it. For example, If somebody says they caught Joe Ayaba, a principal Ambazonian fighter, it could be a good or bad fighter. So don't take that because they say he's a fighter for anything's sake. It could be a bad fighter. How many of us have forgotten what happened in Kumba? Remember the Mother Teresa school in Kumba, where they killed those children? And what the government said, I think at that it was quoted as saying that, look, we authorized this, but it went too far. In other words, they authorized it, but the actors went too far. And so there are good and bad actors. Back to the United States again. An indictment is not a conviction. And to the best of my knowledge, let me repeat again, nobody has been convicted in the United States with any activity related to Ambazonia as a terrorist action. I can just give you a few examples. For example, the old person that was served time, Ambazonia, but with unrelated things to Ambazonia, is Mangang. Mangang's case had nothing to do with Ambazonia. Nobody should ever quote it as having to do with Ambazonia. She was charged for trying to ship weapons to Lagos. That was not a terrorist act. Her destination was Lagos. That's not Nigeria. There are laws against carriage and shipment of arms in the United States. And so she was charged only for that. She entered a plea deal, and then that was the end of it. So nobody should ever say that Mangang, because she's an Ambazonian, was convicted for trying to ship arms to Cameroon. No, Lagos is not Cameroon. Lagos is not Ambazonia. And in any case, there was Mangang never had the opportunity to explain what she was going to do with the arms. She simply violated the arms laws in America. Because here, even in the United States, if you are supposed to get a license to buy a gun. If you want to buy a gun from the store without a license, you'll be charged for illegal carriage of arms. That is not terrorism. And so people should take note of that. And again, those of us in the United States, be sure that you are doing the right thing. You don't get covered when you are doing the wrong thing. And again, let me explain what the president said as far as the lockdown is concerned. He said, look, lockdown when it is necessary and when it is acceptable. I explained earlier during the week that lockdowns were never meant to bring to the people. And so those who call for their lockdowns, months, weeks, or years, they don't bind us as the government. As the government, we do the right thing. But we don't forget that there are bad actors, I've just said. They struggle. We don't take responsibility for their wrongdoings. But we have the responsibility to explain what is right and what is wrong. So that is what it is. The president explained that, and many other things that we'll have to deal with going down the road. And so rest assured that once you are doing the right thing, if you follow us, the president said, no member of his government have ever ordered people to be shot or to do wrong things. If you follow the instructions from us, be sure you are on the right track. Go draft. Your money will properly kept in an American bank if you are in the United States. Nobody will charge you for drafting to help your own people. Do what we tell you. Just if you doubt, ask questions. If you doubt again, ask and ask and ask. But be reminded, as I conclude this segment, that there are bad actors. There are very many bad actors in the struggle. Maybe Choyaba is one. I'm not indicting him. Maybe many others. But be aware that if you're a bad actor, there's almost no room for you to hide. If you're prosecuted by the ICC, you might be prosecuted by the home government where you reside, or where you are resident. So you are not above the law. None of us is above the law. We should be law-abiding, doing what we have to do. If you doubt, ask questions. If you don't know, ask for the directions. It is not about President Sako. It is not about Paddy sitting there moderating things. It is not about my colleague. So it is not about me. It is about the right thing. Dislike our faces if you want, but listen to us, you must, if you want to be free. This advice we give is free. It doesn't make us legitimate. That's not legitimate. Legitimate us. No. It just makes you safe. Listen to them. Again, on the lockdown, this is my own personal addition. Yes, as legal as they are, yes, they are coming to the end. And the next question is, what next? After the elections are gone over, you have locked people down for 2-3 months. What next after the so-called elections? Do they have a plan for it? Are they going to continue to lock down when President Chiroma or President Akere Muna or somebody comes to power here, won't they? They have no plan for that. Their idea is to be on the high stand.
President Bia is me.
So that's my input on that. Lockdowns, I've said we never authorize them. And so
okay, baristas, let's take a quick editorial.
Paddy, let me add one little thing. Some of the atrocities committed by AGOFC and ADF are committed by the enemy, La Republic of Cameroon, and they have contracted with bad actors like AGOFC and ADF to take responsibility for the acts that the government commits. Extrajudicial killing. There have been many. And Ayabacho will come out and say, well, we did it to send a warning. Let them dance to the music. Thank you.
Yeah, let's take a quick editorial there from Star Smart about Dian. And when we come back, we'll be concluding this segment for the draft tonight to begin.
Dian County, carved in 1975 from portions of Victoria and Kumba, is not just an administrative creation, but a territory steeped in history, culture, and resilience. With Mundemba as its capital and towns like Bamuso, Toko, Dikome Balwe, Isangele, and Ekondo Titi forming its lifeline, Dian has always been a county that carries weight in the southern Cameroon's nation. Now, the people of Dian, Batanga, Isangele, Bima, Balondo, Efik, Balwe, and Ngolo mirror the spirit of the land, diverse yet united in identity. Predominantly rural, their livelihoods center on shifting cultivation, cocoa farming, fishing, and petty trading. Now, their environment, rich sub-montane forests, dense herb layers, and fertile soils, has provided not only for their survival but also for their resistance against exploitation. Dian's story is one of survival in the face of historical injustices and colonial domination. Its people remain deeply tied to their land, traditions, and community life, making the county a cultural stronghold in the ongoing struggle for liberation. Now, the first thing Dian is rich in is its oil, which is the core of colonial La Republic's interest in Ambazonia. But away from the oil in Dian, if food is power, then Dian County is one of Ambazonia's strongest sources of resilience. The fertile soils and favorable climate have made it the breadbasket of Ambazonia, producing staple crops like cocoyam, cassava, yam, maize, and banana, alongside cash crops like cocoa, coffee, and oil palm. Now, large-scale rubber and oil palm plantations highlight the county's vast economic potential. Yet the tragedy lies in the paradox that while Dian holds such resources, including oil, and while its soil feeds and sustains, its wealth has historically been plundered to enrich external entities, leaving local communities in poverty. Now, this injustice is a mirror of the wider southern Cameroon's experience. Immense wealth exploited without development in return. Dian's fight for liberation, therefore, is not merely about political freedom, but also about reclaiming economic justice, ensuring its people reap the benefits of their own land. Now, beyond its agriculture, Dian County is a jewel of biodiversity and culture. Its tropical forests and mangrove swamps host rare species from forest elephants and gorillas to vibrant bird life, making it one of Ambazonia's ecological treasures. Equally rich in its cultural heritage, the Oroko, Mbo, and Balondo people maintain traditions expressed in festivals, dances, music, and handicrafts that embody centuries of history and resistance. Now, combined with pristine beaches, waterfalls, and ecotourism hubs like Korup National Park, NDIAN has all the elements of a global tourist magnet. But just as with agriculture, these riches remain underdeveloped or exploited in ways that exclude the people. For NDIAN, liberation also means unlocking its cultural and ecological wealth for the benefit of its communities and future generations. Now, getting into NDIAN's anthropological history, it is inseparable from Ambazonia's broader struggle. From pre-colonial times when the Oroko, Bakosi, Douala, Mundani, and Mbo people thrived through the German and later British colonial eras, the county has known both cultural imposition and resistance. German exploitation sought to erode traditional structures, yet NDIAN preserved its identity through defiance. Under British administration, education and infrastructure expanded, but the people remained second-class citizens in a colonial framework. The 1961 plebiscite and subsequent annexation into La République du Cameroon deepened the wounds of betrayal. Today, Dian County continues to fight, not only to protect its culture, but also to secure its place in Ambazonia's future. Its history is one of resilience, an enduring lesson that liberation is not given, but earned through unity, sacrifice, and preservation of identity. Dian County stands as a symbol of what is at stake in the Ambazonian struggle, the Ambazonian liberation struggle, a land rich in resources, biodiversity, culture, and history, yet trapped in a cycle of exploitation and neglect. Its forests, farms, and festivals all tell one story, that freedom is not just political, but also economic, cultural, and environmental. NDIAN is not just a county, it is a pillar of Ambazonia's fight for dignity and self-determination.
The number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now is the draft. We stand at the threshold of an existential struggle, a pivotal juncture in our proud history that brooks no failure, tolerates no hesitation. So we will draft incessantly, individually, within the warm, vibrant tapestries of our communities. We will draft.
Now, before we move into the Zoom, I'd like to ask us the advantage of this county, Dian, demographically, because we'll talk about Boyo, but let's begin with Dian. We started by talking on many different things, bread basket, but I'm talking about the war. The war we're fighting right now. It's true that the situation there is not what it used to be, but there is some evolution and there are some strategic changes. When you look at the Ambazonia strategic plan on the home front to fight this war, what would you say Dian is? Let's start with you, Mbeseha.
Yes, Paddy. I believe that after the coup plotters did what they did and decimated the political structures of Dian, but the fighters, in spite of what happened at that time, the complicity of some of the coup plotters who took out the military leader, apart from that, the boys in Dian are still fighting in the creeks. The only problem Dian has is communication. There are no internet in all of Dian forests and in the creeks, so they are unable to communicate. But the boys and girls are still doing what the others are doing in other counties. Dian is still very active, and all of us must make sure we make available the means for them to protect themselves. We must do that because they have a right to defend themselves. The Cameroon army, or what they call the Cameroon Navy, keeps harassing them, but they cannot enter the creeks to meet them because those boys and girls control the creeks. And I remember sometime they had a fight with some gendarmes, and we didn't know anything about it until we learned that about a couple of gendarmes were taken out. We don't know how many of our boys were taken out, but that's war for you. You fight whoever is fighting you. And that is normal in war. But our people in Dian deserve support because the boys and girls are still on the ground fighting the enemy. That is all I know about Dian as far as this revolution is concerned. We don't have anybody politically to present to people that these are the officials of Dian County or this and that. We don't. Let's not kid ourselves. But the fighting on the ground, look at what they did in Ekondo Titi. They took out the exploitative system that La Republic put there to collect taxes, to collect custom duty, and they burned down that whole place in a fight with La Republic soldiers. That is a job that was done when the political leaders were no longer there. We are saying that let nobody think that the Indian people have given up the struggle. No, they are still fighting, and we need to support them. Thank you.
Mbeseha.
Well, I think Indian is so peculiar because we have just said in the last segment, Indian is the bread basket of Cameroon. That's the last place Cameroon will live. They will hang on to everything in Ambazonia, die everywhere, but they will hang on to Dian for using the best. Because without Dian, poor Bia will not even be there. Without Dian, Brenda will not be sitting somewhere in Switzerland in a hotel enjoying herself. Without Dian, all those foreign bank accounts will not be there. Without Dian, there will be no Glencore, and so on and so forth. So we just understand that people are going to try to undermine us, even if it is only India. You see, we're drafting all around, but people must know this. This is my view. If there's no fighter in India, if there's no fighter in Sako, we will create fighters there to liberate those two areas. Because those are the two geographical areas that Yaoundé will want to hang on to till death. Those are the two geographical areas that caused the UK to sell us to France. How many million pounds? They know. They knew the value of it. Those are the two geographical areas for which France will not want to go away. And so what everything is going on in Dian, going on in Sako, is the tip of the iceberg. They are still doubling down. And shall we let go? No, we shall not let go. We shall defend Dian. Even if it means abandoning other countries, we shall defend Dian to the last man standing because of its importance. We've talked about oil and all those sort of things. There are also many important things in Dian, some that have not been mentioned. You know that Dian is home to the Coral Reserve Forest. The Coral Reserve Forest is a forest with rare medicinal plants in the world. They're there. When it started, they got some cure from there. And so in Dian, without roads, in Dian, without schools, in Dian, without hospital, remains the most important thing that we must fight for. Is it designed that they don't get the hospitals? Maybe it's designed. Maybe they just wanted to deflect attention. Nobody should think that this is even worth anything. That's why they fought for Bakassi. That's why they went into the Green Tree Agreement, just to keep Dian, and so on and so forth. That's why Nigeria fought the war to keep Bakassi, which was in Dian, because of the importance of the area. So we have all these natural barriers that are hanging on us. And then those people don't go unnoticed. They will find in Dian and among Dian people collaborators. They will always be there. That's natural. They will find people who cooperate knowingly or unknowingly. They will be there. And so we don't underestimate that. But that should not dissuade us. We should be encouraged. If anything, we must draft from Dian. As I've just said, if we don't have fighters in Dian, we'll create them. But we are there. We have fighters there right now. But if they are no longer there, we will create them and liberate Dian at all costs, at any time. That's the reason why we fight. That's why we draft Dian today. That's why we will draft Dian tomorrow. That's why we're fighting for liberation. Over to you.
After this music break, we're going to talk briefly about Boyo, and we'll hand over the mic and the Zoom. Stay tuned.
Yes, entertainment. Yeah.
If you get the money, make you help your brother. If you know thank God, you go and I forgot. Brother, make you find work, or you remain the suffer. Holy my hand, we make come together. If I do you bad, if I do you good, if I promise and fail you, if I do you good, man I am young, tell me Jenny come on. In a winter, bunny come on. Man I am young, yummy tangy come on. In a chummy come on, chummy come on. Money, make you help your brother. If you know thank God, you go and I forgot. Brother, make you find work, or you remain the suffer. Holy my hand, we may come together. If I do you bad, if I do you good, if I promise and fail you, if I do you good, man I am young, tell me Jenny come on. In a winter, bunny come on. Man I am young, yummy tangy come on. In a chummy come on, chummy come on. Man I am young, tell me Jenny come on. In a winter, bunny come on. Man I am young, yummy tangy come on. In a chummy come on, chummy come on.
So welcome back. That was an amazing one right there. Vice Fru, please. Boyo is waiting. Please talk to us.
Boyo is a very, very, very important county in the southern Cameroon. Its culture is one of the best in the northern zone. They have a very strong chieftaincy organization. The fund of Com is one of the first class funds of the northern zone. Boyo has a very strong agricultural base, especially coffee. Some of the best Arabica come from Com. A lot of good coffee comes from Com. And Com in those days used to export a lot of coffee. And I want to add that the Catholic Church is well implanted in Com, and almost 80 to 90% of Com people are Catholics. They are God-fearing, but they defend their land. They are people of deep principles. The Right Honorable Augustine Gomjoa came from Com. And you know how he handled the post of Prime Minister in the days of the colonial La République du Cameroon beginnings, Ahijo and Bea. Look, if there is no way that we cannot rank Com at least as one of the most productive and one of the most aspiring counties in the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. They have shown that they can defend themselves. One of the best hospitals for burn treatment is Mbingo, and it is in Boyo. And it has stood the test of time. There have been cases where people have attempted to do, La Republique has attempted with the soldiers to enter that hospital and destroy it, and it has not worked. The people of Com are resilient, and they are ready to defend themselves, and we must give them the aid, the help they need to defend themselves against the enemy, because the enemy goes where they feel that they can get something, and Com is one of those places. That is why I'm calling on all Ambazonians to draft for Com today. If you are drafting for Dian, know that you have to draft for Com. I call it Com, but the actual name is Boyo. I'm calling it Com being the name that everybody in the northern zone knows about Com, about Boyo. They are Com people, and they are tied together. Their culture is resilient. The culture is one of the best in the northern zone. Thank you, Paddy. Let's get going.
By some Mbeseha, real quickly so that we can move forward.
Yes, we're talking about Boyo. As I saw, I said quite a lot. But Boyo, we can remember we've just talked about Bobby Njua, he's from Boyo. And by Sanso has taken it further to say they are good Christians. They did not confine themselves to Catholic Christianity. But in terms of Catholic Christianity, they have produced one of the 26 bishops in Cameroon. Bishop Nko of Kumbo is from Com. But then there's a lot more. But Sanso talk about Bingo. Bingo is not a Catholic hospital. It is a Baptist. It shows how open-handed the people are. But Bingo has become a household name, not because you go to Bingo. They have exported their services. As if you go to Motenge today, far away in Fako, you find Bingo annexed. You go somewhere in Douala, you find Bingo annexed. So these are not people, this is not a place who can let out. Again, they are a center of cultural revival, which goes beyond Cameroon. It goes beyond Africa. Lest we forget this story of Afo Akom that was carried away by the white man to foreign land. Nobody knew it would ever come back. And for came back to Cameroon, Ambazonia, and came back to come. It is living right there. We would not have come back without the cooperation of foreign partners. We would not have received it without the cooperation of other Ambazonians. And so that is important for us to know the importance of Boyo. Boyo is a name newly created, but as Mr. Nsoh says, they are basically called the Com people. I think the founder of Com is one of those who have stood the test of time during these 7-9 years of struggle. He's been cited as being an upright guy. He defends his people, he defends the tradition, he defends the cause that all of us stand for. Is there any reason why we should not go and join them? Is there any reason why we should not join to draft for them, to get them out, give them their own share of independence, and send away the enemy back? For no piece of Ambazonia will left behind, not to talk about Boyo. No piece of Ambazonia will left behind, not to talk about Dian or any other county. So I call on all of us to draft, open pockets, deeper yarns, give the widows what might. Let us draft Dian and Boyo, because they are one in several. They are divided geographically, but they are one in spirit. Over to you.
Yes, I'm calling on those who are watching us. I'm calling on all those who are watching us via our social media platforms right now on YouTube and on Facebook to join the Zoom meeting so that the program of tonight can actually begin. If you have not shared the Zoom link, just invite somebody to invite somebody. We'll take this break once again, and we'll be handing over the microphone to the officials of Boyo and Dian. Remember, Dian is not just the breadbasket of Ambazonia. It's a remarkable day. It is the home village of the First Lady of Ambazonia. That's President Sako's wife. Also remember, when you talk about history, you talk about the Augustine Gomjwa, you're talking about Boyo. So it's an important, when you think about Boyo, you think about history. When you think about Dian, you think about the breadbasket and the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. We will be handing over the mic to those organizers in this community right now.
The number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now is the draft. We stand at the threshold of an existential struggle, a pivotal juncture in our proud history that brooks no failure, tolerates no hesitation. So we will draft incessantly, individually, within the warm, vibrant tapestries of our communities. We will draft. We must draft. Draft, for in this paramount task, our draft lies the power to liberate Ambazonia.